So I am in a parking lot taking off my valve cover gaskets, replacing some things, doing some auto maintenance, breaking things and then fixing things. It's Year of the Dragon. It's a new moon. Scott just hit me up. I'm gonna call him, and since I'm not going anywhere, let's have a new moon talk while I change some valve cover gaskets. Hey man.
Hey man, how's it going? Wow. Okay, that looks like a nice green, beautiful area.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was working on my car, and I got my act together, and then now I'm in this situation, and it's not that exciting, but I almost did like a how-to video on
beautiful in every direction.
Yeah, except for the dead guy, right? Yeah.
Now I know you're talking about the Bay.
It's like the Bay Area is funny because that's a thing that I always tell people. It's like any influencer you see in the Bay Area, the camera's here. But if you move the camera to here, there's a homeless guy, or like there's it's pretty crazy.
There's a burnt out car. It's so true. It's like living in the Bay and going around town is definitely I've reflected on this a couple times. Like, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot, and we're going through a lot as an area. And I think anybody that's still here has like built up a kind of tolerance, for things that are happening, or is dealing with a lot. They're processing a lot.
There was a meme that was going around. It's kind of like, if you are something like not angry at the atrocities that are going on in the world, they're talking about some political thing, then you're, I don't know what they're saying. They're basically just saying, like, if you're not angry,
you're not angry.
It's and like you're actually complicit in, you are part of the problem. And I'm like, no, just the fact that I have a phone right here, like, this is an atrocity in itself. You know what I mean? It's like, and just the fact that you can walk by as much that you are, it's like, look, man, we're all numb, right? Comfortably numb. And and it's kind of one of those things where it's sort of, I was just doing this CEO training, and we were talking about that, about just taking time to just stop and like, in the mindfulness course I do as a roll call, right? Just stop and just take roll again of the things in your life and the loops that you run, and then there's this other group of people, they're asking me to do a journaling workshop because they're like, we don't understand the point of it. And I was like, no, it's to just check in and just see how many layers that you just keep adding on. And because Rumi would say, there's the little branch and the snowflakes fall on it and they just keep piling up. And then one day one more snowflakes comes and it falls. So it's our job is to kind of brush those snowflakes off and like take each one and like look at them. And, it's super simple. They're like, what's the point? It's like, no, it's to think. It's to like re-engage. It's to like declutter. There's a million reasons why. But it might not be a tangible result in real time,
Yeah, but the instinct, I mean, even just the response to the exercise is the point where you should start reflecting. It's like, well, you're looking for advantage, in like that every act of self-reflection or even self-cultivation has to bring some advantage, like, actually, no, it could just be like sleeping or eating good food. It's just so you get to live, like you could say a full quality human experience, but I don't know exactly how relevant that is either. It's it's really just engaging yourself as a human being to like be in a place of self-reflection. But that it has to be attached to some sort of advantage is it's absurd. It's pretty absurd. Yeah, but like, that's who we are, Well, what are you gonna do?
That is true. Okay, so let's get started because I don't want to get rained on, and I don't want to any of that stuff. And like I said,
Right.
you guys at the beginning of this, I did a little intro because I had this,
Cool.
it's like I've taken my car apart numerous times because I'm in this thing of like, I want to learn new skills, so I might as well just learn auto mechanics. It's really fun. So I've saved thousands. And so while I was going to do this, I was going to do this in the shop that I was taking I did my valves,
that was
cover gaskets and stuff.
Hey, so what was it? Let me ask you this. Is there anything, and is there like any one thing that you discovered in the process of doing these automotive procedures on your car that was like actually kind of surprising to you?
It's easy.
Like,
it's
okay.
and it's not easy it's very easy. Don't be afraid of it. But the main thing is it's a good, it's zen in the art of motorcycle mechanics. It's like the idea is you might have something with 5 bolts and like 3 of them are different. So it's a moment of like, take a picture and then mark on a piece of cardboard, where they go, right? Like little things like that. It's always like, and then I have a culinary degree, right? So I was a chef, and I really like the idea of organizing your workflow, and then when you're done with this project, you wipe that down, and then you go on to the next project. So there is like a flow to it, and it's very much like this. It's like, in order to get to this piece, you have to take these off and clear
These
space.
4 steps. Yeah.
It's pretty. Yeah, it just goes slow, smooth, fast. It's problem solving. And also, I bought this used, so it's kind of cool to see like how half-assed the guy that owned it was. He was just trying to get, it's like, I mean, it still runs great and everything like that, but you just kind of see all the little things that they did.
It's like somebody else working in your station, in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they don't treat it like you treat it.
You're like, oh man, yeah. Or when you Airbnb something, you're like, I don't need to push that. It's it's like, it's not mine, so I move on. And so I'm getting rid of this vehicle, and so I figured, if I'm doing one, I'm doing both of them, make everything matching, make everything good, and it's kind of my conscience, and it's wonderful. It's a great skill, I don't know. I've been beginning.
Well, I've seen you do that with other like cars that you've sold. You actually go through pretty extensive process to make sure you're not giving somebody a problem,
well, they have my phone number, and they're probably going to call and let me know if they're outside.
And I'm on an island.
Yeah, it's like, and I mean, even with the website and all these other things, it's like, I've been offering, it's like I offer these like free things for people all the time, and it really is just because I love sharing the stuff, and I love getting people started, and I genuinely feel that by giving a lot away and by sharing what you're into, that's how we nourish the soil for the trees to grow. And it's not about like selling people on anything. It's literally about
100%.
like, hey man, are you into this? Yeah, try this guy, and that's kind of and guys, I'll be back in the Bay, and I'm not doing as much teaching. I'm going to be very limited in my teaching, very limited in my clinics. Actually, the word got out, and I've already booked like 5 people today. And I haven't even told anyone yet, but it's like I'm already filling up. So if you guys want to email me, and if you guys want to get in for a personal session, and then I'm doing 2 teacher trainings when I'm there. So it's not about training classes, it's about like getting people into it's going to be pretty badass. And then I'm going back out on tour, and then I'll be back. But anyways, I'm having a great day. It's beautiful. I'm about to roller skate. I just think my car is killing it. I just learned something very, very cool. So I'm excited to hear about I don't know what anything is going on. We just left. Are we in a rabbit moon?
Yeah, so we are currently ending the fire tiger moon, which is the tiger moon is always the first moon of the year, or that's the way the calendar is shaped currently. So it is the tiger moon.
But this is important. Yeah. I apologize to everyone. We did the Year of the Dragon talk, but we never talked about the fire tiger. So
it wasn't important.
It's not important anyway. It just.
Well, I mean, it's not. I can talk about it in the context of what's coming, but it's true. We didn't really get into like talking about how to conduct yourself in the tiger moon, and I think there was some advantage to that because people are too eager, and that was what was available in the fire tiger moon is to misconduct ourselves because we're too eager. So it's so that if people really didn't know what to do and they felt really clueless during the first moon of the year, I think it was a good thing because it kind of kept people from doing something stupid, and that was something that was, or something excessive, not necessarily stupid, but like excessive to do something excessive, because tangents and impulse could end up being pretty tragic pretty quickly in that first moon. So if people were a little bit skittish and kind of pulled back from it, I think that was a good thing because it just kind of kept you from getting into trouble. Because the thing that the most important thing that we can talk about now, because we're going into what's a fire rabbit. So we're going into the rabbit moon, and we're going into a fire rabbit moon.
Fire rabbit?
Yeah.
That's my hour.
I know. They're definitely, fire rabbit. She's pretty outspoken. What I can say is that I think the most important thing to remember is that if we're just backing up and kind of taking a look at the seasons, it's worth remembering that there's only one time a year where ambition is actually appropriate, and that's summer. Because the conduct that's expected in the summer and encouraged is to be ambitious, because we're supposed to be taking things into completion and fulfillment and acquisition and accumulation. So ambition is actually very appropriate. Okay. But in spring, spring is about preparing ourselves to be able to handle this vitality and bring it towards stable results. So if we conduct spring in an aggressive and ambitious way, then what we risk is that our summer, especially in this particular year, is that our summer becomes like depleted, prematurely, because we kind of we expended all our energy too soon, right? So summer feels depleted, and then autumn or the fall feels bitter, or we're just kind of constantly stimulating ourselves in this kind of aggressive way, and we develop health issues, right? So that's the sort of backup and take a bigger picture at the relationship between the seasons. And we are in the second moon of spring, and we're not transitioning to summer yet. That's in the third moon. All right. So that's the next moon. But we are kind of hitting some interesting milestones because Yang Qi is still kind of buried beneath the ground. It's still fresh, but it's starting to vibrate. It's starting to move. Right. So spring, the idea of spring being sprung, so things are starting to shift. Right. But they're not in any way about like acquisition or building, it's too soon for that. What we're doing is we're supposed to be in a place of listening, right? Because we're getting an idea, we're starting to develop ourselves, and we're starting to develop our potential. And so that's what we want to be doing during this second moon, is developing the potential. Right now, we're like, the new moon begins on Sunday, and then equinox, where basically yang is ascending and yin is officially declining, happens in like 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So that's a pretty important milestone that begins in this moon. And then by the end of this moon, we are really preparing for this transition into summer. Like we're getting into it. So it's not like it's like very far away, but we're still in this place where, impulsiveness and aggression is not necessarily the greatest idea. In the second moon, we should be managing our expectations, right? And we should find the value in sublimation and delayed gratification, right? So it's tricky because a fire rabbit is not very good at that. So there's a tendency still for us to misconduct ourselves. And it's actually, I think this moon will be even worse than the first moon in terms of our capacity, our likelihood for misconducting ourselves, because the energy is starting to build. Matt.
Let's focus on solutions, man, because you've been a downer most of my life.
Oh, come on now. This isn't that.
So
This isn't that hard.
okay, so focusing on, let's don't focus on, it's not about misconducting ourselves. It's how should we be conducting ourselves? Namaste.
Well,
How should we be conducting? Focus on sleep.
The image you should like carry around is like a preteen or a teenager that's not quite got their driver's license yet, but they're experiencing these kind of pangs.
I'm just kidding.
Right, right.
Just buying.
So there's a lot of
yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of fertility here. Okay. That's the idea. There's like increasing sense of fertility here, but it just needs guidance, yeah. So, I mean, if you want to focus on the good things, it's like really focus on what kind of guidance are you willing to cooperate? Are you willing to educate yourself, or are you kind of being belligerent, because if there's a belligerence that's happening, yeah, it's not so good.
I just wrote this thing, and it was about, when we work with kids, I always talk about, every time you do anything towards practice, whatever the skill is, you're putting a little bit of money in your practice bank, right? And so then when it's time to buy the skill, then every person has their number. But
okay, yeah.
But it's interesting you say that, because like you kind of need, speaking of the preteen, it's like you need more time and energy, because time and energy is the currency that buys skill. So when you're a kid, you have more time and energy because you don't have a lot of money and you can't buy skill anyway.
Right.
But that energy goes towards buying the skill. But it's funny because like I was saying that because like when you are young and you are first starting, like you're in a low level position, like you don't actually have skill or education, but you do have time and energy. And that's kind of what's going for it.
And frustration comes easily because in the second moon, and with this image of a preteen teenager in the second moon, like our liver chi is very activated. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want to really express myself. Yep. So the reason why I kind of like say, okay, be careful, is because there is a kind of like reactionary energy, reactionary emotions that are like, they could just drop, like very, very easily. And this person doesn't know anything. You don't know, like this kind of capacity for aggression can because it's all about these pangs of differentiation. Like
something
you're not
around
boss
that.
of me.
Well, so something around that is like I remember the time where my aggression, my ignorance, you don't know me kind of bull. I always say this is why it's so important to have like teachers that you choose, because I found a conditional community that was really important to me, my martial arts teacher, right? But I remember a moment where my aggression, all of those energies kind of came to a head, and because I'm a fire dragon, but my hour is a fire rabbit, so I can get a little out of hand, right? And this is when I was a preteen. I was like 12 and then coming into 13. But I remember just waking up in the back of a car. I didn't know whose it was. I'd probably been awake for like 3 days, and I just woke up in the back of a random vehicle in a random parking lot. And I remember that walk home of just going, oh, I need to go serve my teachers again, right? I need to get in, and I needed to find people that I cared about, that understood my energy, but at the same time gave me a place to put it. And because I saw right in that moment, like, this is going to get it really out of hand. Like, this is, I was lucky enough to have that insight, and hit like a decent bottom, but it's easy to hit the bottom when you're not that high up. And, I
think it's an important context of why I bring forward is because the assumption of the modern worldview is that if we push harder, something more will happen. So at this particular moment in spring, if we do that, there's consequences of that aggression are a kind of diminished capacity when it comes to the summer. You don't want to be diminished. You want to be able to like ride the dragon when it's coming. Technically in the calendar, the dragons are seasonal. They come and go. They get locked away in the winter and they come out in the spring. And so they've just been released like just a few days ago, according to the calendar. So it's just starting to move. It's just starting to shift. So you don't want to, like, if you got $50 in your pocket, you don't want to spend it all right now. You want to actually kind of cultivate what your interests are, pay attention to the signs as they come to you. But I also say, make mistakes, like, because make mistakes, be enabled to make mistakes, mostly because if it gives you a sense of your own history, meaning that, like, if I made a certain mistake, then it gives me a capacity to okay, how did I get here? So that kind of level of attention to your own experience is basically what we're talking about in the second moon. And this is towards this Ganying principle, because so in the Confucian worldview, Ganying is really central, because what it talks about is morality, like the natural morality. Like, our morality is understood as like something that comes from outside and that we have to conform to. Whereas the morality that's given by Ganying is that you're always in this place of reciprocity. So you're constantly getting feedback on your own behavior. So synchronicity is not that difficult. It's actually pretty available. It's just related to our capacity to be in our own experience at all times. So this is a very rich time for all of that. But if we're just thinking about how much we can get done, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss that. Like, and that would be, like I say, like, synchronicity is really quite simple, unless, as long as we're not entirely obsessed with what synchronicity does for us. Like, synchronicity could just be existing. It's not about like what it brings us, so that's really, there's a great deal of potential that's developing this moon, like a tremendous potential, and it's going to go really fast. So it's good to slow down our experience as much as possible, because we don't need to push. Like, spring is not a time for pushing. Spring is a time for sponsoring harmony, not stimulation. So that's really the bottom line when it comes to the second moon, is that spring is going to carry you forward. You don't have to push. You can just let it open up. And all you need to do is really observe, pay attention, be cooperative, be curious. Like, those kinds of things help reveal the potential that's actually available. It will take form on its own. It will develop its own form. And then when you get to the third moon, then you can start making decisions about what they call verifying or authenticating the inspiration. And that's what the dragon moon is all about, is like authenticating. Okay, is this what we want to do? Or can we remove all doubt from the situation and just move and go into that place where ambition is available? But if we try to do that now, we're going to be overwhelmed.
Well, so would you say that, I mean, yeah, I'm always talking about like, this is what harms you when you're younger or what helped you when you're younger will usually harm you when you're older. And so kind of the sprouting spring wood dragon energy, I'm like that maybe this is a time to just be like, I used to do it this way, but from now on I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to do it this way with like a new energy. Would you say?
I think that's great. Yeah, that's absolutely terrific. Because for the most part, our lives don't radically change from year to year. And like, people say they want complete reinvention, but they're lying. They don't really. They just want things to feel better, for the most part. Like, so there's still something in our routines that's valuable. And during this time of year, it's very important to do it in a new way, try different things, like very, very important, because this is a freshness time. You want to be nourished by freshness. But if you're stuck in a rut doing the same thing, like, I only do these things and I do them all year long, then you're basically wearing yourself down, pretty quickly. But this is the time of year where you can kind of tweak things that you normally naturally do. Just play. Don't even try to do like a full, if we're talking yoga or martial arts, don't do the form. Just do part of just mess around, piece it together. Like, don't try to like do 30 minutes of qigong every day. Like Ming would say, that's ridiculous. You should actually just be in touch with your experience. Like, what does your heart want to do? Like, just try, just have fun, play, like do that kind of activity.
It's funny you're talking about all these things that I'm writing, but one of the things that I write about is these are all in the so the reason why I'm writing about all these things is because People that join the premium, I've been having a lot of signups lately, which is really cool.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I'm now I want to call it like the PO box, or premium members only kind of thing, and it's just like a series of emails that's coming out of like start like think of this and then think of this. It'd be like me just kind of being, hey, you might want to do that this time. But one of the ones is talking about beginner's mind, which is it's when you become an expert beginner, like you go back to day one and you actually just see more there. Like, you know what I mean? You got to leave for a second and you got to come back and see more. But then the other one is when it comes to meditating, some say, it's just about staying, some just stay in the practice for 30 minutes. But sometimes you can also just, instead of meditating for 30 minutes or an hour, or just doing, yoga for 30 minutes, an hour, you could just do like 3 poses or just sit for like 10 minutes, like 4 or 5 times a day. Like the frequency of just showing up it's easier to do. You can just fit it in whenever, and you'll actually gain a lot from doing that.
The advantage of spaciousness in spring is one of the heritages of water. Yep. Like if we're coming out of the winter and like we're, like I made that mistake right when the year started. It's like I got fully booked up and then I was just like kind of like whooped, and what we should do is just allow for openness. Like I can just sit here for the afternoon. I don't really need to do anything. And then I just find myself spontaneously doing one thing or another. If we have a body of skill that we've been practicing for years, one of the ways that we show development and our relationship to that body of material is that we just spontaneously do parts of it without any kind of, no rigid benefit whatsoever. You're just messing around. And I think that's really what's available is this time of year, is like where we sort of infusing some innocence and freshness into something so it's not so heavy, right? And then we can look at it in a new way. So that does provide potentially some benefit, but it's mostly subconscious or unconscious, just sort of like your life doesn't feel so heavy. You can just infuse some joy in the experience. It's one of the things about spring, and that's probably why I didn't come off saying these are the ways to solve problems. It's no problems actually to solve. I'm just trying to, my imperative is just be like, don't go so fast. Like this is a good time to actually slow down. Not like you say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. But a lot of people are just like, look, because you're going to start feeling spring moving. It's going to start getting under your skin. You're going to want to like speak out, do things. And like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a good to remember what the priorities of spring actually are. And it is this playfulness, like just to be playful and to let things speak for their own sake. Let spring speak for its own sake, not for something that we want to acquire or even pursue. Yeah. So, like if you got 2 12-year-old kids, you don't call that courtship. they're just playing house, or just like they're just friends. Like that, it hasn't really tripped into there's an obvious fertility there from our standpoint, but it carries a level of innocence that you don't take very seriously. So again, back to this image of this preteen couple, fresh yang, new yin, and the new yin brings a kind of like a conscience, a like early maturity to yang.
Okay, so I have a question. Hold on, let me plug this in. My computer's gonna die. Guess who travels with a power bank all the time?
With batteries. Yeah. So many batteries.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Boop, there we go.
There you are.
So this is a funny thing. So here's what I want to say to everybody. When you were saying that ambition thing, look how windy it is. Look at this. Oh. Hold on. Oh! Yeah. I wish I had some steam.
There's the wind.
When I was I do a couple things. I do martial arts, right? You do too.
Yep.
I love gaining skill, but so martial arts, music, and like roller skating, like these little things that require. So when I first started, people were always saying, practice an hour a day, right? But like when you learn martial arts and you just learn 1, 2, right? And they're like, practice that for an hour. You're just like, well, it took a second and a half to do my whole repertoire, right? So then they're saying practice for an hour. So you're like, what do I do to stand there and just do this for an hour? Like, I mean, technically, yeah, but that's kind of, but if you up the frequency and you just kind of play with it, and, just like with roller skating, I learned that there's just a couple moves. So I would practice like an hour or 2 hours a day, but I would do it. I just have my skates in a place. I would just jump on them, and I would do these like 5-10 little exercises, and then I would move on with my life. And then I would live my life, jump back on, do it again, do it with a different attitude every time. Or like when you learn guitar, you might have no 2 chords. What are you going to do? Just play those 2 chords until your just fingers are bleeding, which some people would say do that. But what if you just play those 2 chords for 5 minutes and then leave and then come back, play those for, it's kind of managing that playfulness, but at the same time go in and out and train your mind to leave and then come back and keep it in your thoughts.
Yeah. And this is why, like, when we were talking earlier before we got on the call, it's like, I think there's something when we're talking about the second moon, the rabbit moon, it's cool to discuss the creative process. Like, what is the creative process? And like, how does that creative process function? And for who are we talking about? What are we talking about? Because we are in a wood dragon year. It's very creative, it's very expansive in its capacity. So I think it's going to be a really powerful and like nurturing, potentially very nurturing moon if we have this kind of aptitude for the kind of creative process. If we're trying to secure results, then it's going to be really difficult. But if we have this kind of aptitude for play, for developing discipline, but again, this goes back to what our appetites are. This is, we talked about this like when we did the talk, and it's a pretty big feature of early spring, is discovering and playing with what our appetites actually are. And that's,
when you say appetites,
that's a huge bit.
I mean, it's vague. I mean, I always say it's what you're hungry for, but because I just know a lot of people, their appetites are like, I want cocktail hour. And if you dive into that appetite, you're just going to be an alcoholic. I don't care how many fruits and adjectives you use to describe your wine, you're an alcoholic, right? So what would you say about like guiding your appetites towards a goal or an intention or something like that?
Like the opportunities of a wood dragon moon, or the opportunities of any year, are an opportunity. Like, people don't have to take it, so if they want to sit there and drink wine, because that's where they are, like, you can lead a horse to water, but right, you can't really make them drink. I mean, it's just
quit drinking.
So I mean, we've talked a lot about this outsourcing idea, how our culture like encourages this level of outsourcing. So part of what makes this tradition so potent, but also sometimes inaccessible, is that you can't outsource. Like, you have to actually be in your own experience. This is not a theistic tradition. There's nothing about the cycles of time that are going to tell you what, like, there's appropriateness and there's a morality that comes with that appropriateness to the season and appropriateness to the cycles of time, because that is from a Confucian standpoint, the only source of morality that really exists is our dialogue with nature. Are we in the cycle of time? Are we being appropriate to the cycles of time and our relationships around us? So we always have to stay in our experience. But if our appetite is to like leave, or or if our appetite is to be there or not like these people, I think it's about a self-reflection process that is kind of mandatory for what we were talking about at the beginning of this talk, is like being aware of our experience, right? Is like being aware of like what it is we're motivated by, like what we actually care about. Okay. And so if your life is to work 50 hours a week to justify your drinking habit, that's where you are. Like, I don't think there's nothing about the cycles of time that encourages people to go deeper in their experience. You either are available to that or you're not. Like, and there are maybe other voices that like encourage you to do that, but I say be where you are, because you can't really access those things unless you know where you're at.
So I think the fire rabbit energy is the weirdest one,
Yeah.
because the fire rabbit
Totally.
is very, like, I don't know a lot about it, but just what I've heard, it's like the
Tell me.
rabbit is
Yeah.
very intuitive, right? That's the thing. It's like this
Right.
little
Right.
intuitive, little
Right.
wise little thing, right?
Listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, fire is not natural to that little rabbit. So he's just like the Monty Python rabbit, kind of, he'll mess you up,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
And
Right. Sure.
so
It's
that's
very activated.
yeah, kind of counter to.
It's accelerated. So it's basically, that's why I use this idea of like belligerence, like Ganying, and the idea of the second moon is you're waiting for things to kind of draw together naturally, but you can't draw together naturally if you're taking up all the space. Right? So we have to be capable of listening. And sometimes fire rabbit chi can be belligerent. It can like fill all the space, right? Because it is active. It's excited, like that's what's available this moon, is the excitement, is the enthusiasm, so like I wouldn't say don't be enthusiastic. Just know that you're going to be pretty activated and enthusiastic. So just back up and maybe
The fire
cooperate
rabbit
a little.
is stoked.
Stoked, so stoked, and like probably a little more outspoken than the situation calls for. It needs to be maybe tempered a little bit, I don't know, but in some cases, is it inappropriate? It just means it's mixed, so this idea of like misconducting ourselves is available, but what's the value of misconducting ourselves? That's why I say make mistakes and find out what your history is. Like, how did you get to this place? Like, okay, I made this huge mistake. Why? Unpack it. That would be the suggestion. Because learning and self-cultivation and potential for reform is very, very high this moon, and like very, very supportive. This is a kind of engine for when we talk about the wood dragon as a place of reinvention and rediscovery. I would declare that this fire rabbit moon is the engine of that. It's very powerful. This is a very unique moment in the year. So
I was just in like a 2-week like CEO training thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to them about, anytime you get a black eye or bruises on your arms in martial arts, is class notes, right? You don't judge it. You just, it's like you didn't get punched in the face. You had your hands down, like you own what. And it was cool to like to watch them be like, oh yeah, duh. It's the artistic mind towards there aren't mistakes. Like right now I'm just sitting around playing a lot of guitar and doing all this stuff, but it's sort of like why in jiu-jitsu you would learn your escapes first. Why in martial arts do you learn to fall first, right? It's like, why are these the fundamental principles? But it's a fundamental metaphor.
Yeah. And like so I think there's a lot of ways you can talk about the creative process, from playing music to practicing martial arts, and given, we can both give great answers to why you have to learn your defense first before, you're like, because you're taking more punches than you're throwing, maybe, that's just kind of the nature of the gig, right? Like but that tells you something about what martial arts is either preparing you for, and what it's about, and what its history is, depending on the heritage of the system that you're looking at. Because there's plenty of like MMA, trainings that don't tell you how to fall or defend, because they're only interested in attack, right? So there's an inherent prejudice in the information that we're getting, because education is a kind of exposure, and we're in this place of mutuality, deep mutuality, and deep like mutual exposure to one another in this second moon. It's on fire, like everybody's on fire, and potentially reactive, very reactive to one another. So shit can get as I curse, it could get really violent, like I'm just saying, like I think there's a lot of capacity for things to be very reactive. And the biggest question is like, how can we participate and guide the situation? Because you also have not just yang, but yin, new yin, like the 12-year-old kid also has a partner in new yin. And so this new yin is there to provide a sense of conscience in our behavior, like what we were talking about with your car, like that I want to fix this car because my conscience tells me I don't want to give a lemon to somebody. This is new yin, that's available also for the opportunities that we're looking at, because our opportunities right now, very volatile, changing shape, giving signals, disappearing, coming back. And so by the end of this moon, we can check in with astrologers or other people that give us guidance and prepare, to inspect our inspirations, to like remove all doubt. But at this time, it's like, how can we participate and guide without becoming belligerent or overbearing? Matt.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is time for the next thing. So all right, so who's made for this, right? Because Fire Rabbit's weird. Fire Rabbit's
pretty weird. I'm glad you're saying it. I mean, I know some other people with Fire Rabbit's Hour or just Fire Rabbits, and they are like activated, boy. Like they're a lot of energy. Who's made for this? Who's made for it?
Married or married, like
married and married for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. There's gonna be
who's designing.
There's gonna a lot of. Yeah, the people who are more designed for it are your rabbits. And I think this is a very good moon for them generally. Your dragons, even snakes, like this is a great moon for them. Because they can manage discretion. They can see the activation coming and they know how to respond. The ones that are potentially like blindsided by this or oxen, anybody that's potentially has like blinders on in their activity, your ox, your horses, even potentially like pigs, if they're just too, they can get knocked over by, it's some energy coming from the side, somebody's view of them, because this is also a very social time. So we're going to be exchanging a lot. I think it's a good moon for goats, because this is probably their best moon of the year because it is so socially activated. I don't know if that makes them feel good, but it's a moon that this is probably the moon that they feel most comfortable in given the year. Monkeys should look out, because that's kind of like getting sideswiped. I mean, not like they can't handle it, but who wants to be sideswiped? And then roosters for sure should chill. I mean, this is it's just that sort of bad taste in their mouth they're still dealing with from the rabbit year, so they could feel much the same for roosters. Generally their spring, they should keep it more low key. Dogs, because of they're made for this. What we're talking about, dogs are made for this. They're made for this kind of connection, the capacity for connection. Again, like the goat, I don't know if this is going to make them feel good, but they're made for the dynamics that we're talking about, these kind of dynamics. Rats, they could be very scary time, actually, because the dynamics can be overwhelming for rats. So they should be careful. And then dragons would be just fine. There's no problem there. And I think that's everybody.
Can I say something? So I'm working with this guy and we're kind of collaborating on a bunch of stuff, and there are these big events and I was there, and what I learned is, and because I told him, I was like, I don't do, I always say the biggest conspiracy in the world is the kids menu for adults, right? It started with mac and cheese restaurants, and it started with toast restaurants, and then next thing you know, adult coloring books, and then now summer camp for adults is always just like, workshop, retreat, scripted events constantly. Say something nice about your friend. I can't stand it. I went to summer camp one time when I was a kid, and I just called my dad. I was like, you got to pick me up. I can't do that. I couldn't do it when I was 7. I can't do it now. I'm not a arts and crafts fall back into my arms kind of dude. I want to do real shit. I want to race motorcycles. I want to shoot things. I want to be real. I'm stoked. But but I can
Fire
assist like a champion, right? So I'm always like, I want you to do it, because when I see people that can lead those events, hey everybody, like I'm blown away when you can do something that is so outside of my normal like idiom or whatever, my normal zone. So I assisted in this, held some space, did a lot of body work on people, like kind of broke down their emotional body, like really just ripped through them. And when I was talking to them about that, and when I say this summer camp stuff, the only thing that I see is it's not laid out like when I would go away and do something, I would go do a rite of passage, right? So I've been to my version of summer camp. Like I've done the, I've been alone in the woods, or whatever. And not everything has to be as intense, but
as a fire dragon.
but when you can step away and actually, so I was just telling him, I was like, my job is to like show you and then have those check-ins to see if these things that you did by like being able to relax and learn new skills, can you actually integrate them back into the life that you have and make space for them and actually bring a little bit more grace and efficiency. Because because like go play tennis with an older tennis player, they don't run near as much as the younger tennis players. They have a strategy. And and they're not trying to prove that they can run harder. Go do martial arts or jiu-jitsu with an old master. They're
with the older dude.
Yeah, they're playing chess now. They're not athletes.
Keeping you in a zone. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, this is the time of year too, like the workshop that you just did or whatever is a really good time, to do those things, because you are, like the question that you asked earlier would imply, like you are trying to bring refreshment back into your routines. If you're, the opportunities of these first two moons, especially the first moon, is like, I don't want to do this anymore. Get this the hell away from me. So that was a really big opportunity in the first moon, is to completely shatter all the things that hold you back, or you feel like, right or wrong, it's just, again, following the appetite as it's expressing. Like, I'm tired. I want to shake off the morbidity that I've collected over the last 4 years with this one big change. Okay, obviously not everybody's going to do that. Like, not everybody's in that position, so we shouldn't expect ourselves to have to do that just because there's an opportunity available for that. We can make small changes as well. We're like, okay, I'm done drinking coffee or whatever, some major transition that you're ready to make. And then when we get into these kind of the second moon, those kinds of changes can be a little bit more nuanced. Like this kind of, trust, this kind of like collections or like summer camp, where you can go, man, I haven't shot arrows in, forever. You just go do it just because, it can be a teaching lesson about what you want to bring back to your whatever. But like it can also just be a kid again, because that's actually the opportunity of the second moon, is the invitation to actually be a kid again. Like
the thing that I really loved about this thing, so regardless of like my judgments of it, right? It's not my judgments, it's my personal preference. It's what I like, right? Some people like brunch and other people have make good decisions, right? And so these guys, they to watch their change, it was really, really, really cool. So like, regardless of my thoughts on it, like to see just the ability for people to just step back and just be like, today we're not doing anything, right? But then the idea is, but now what, right? Because what I was talking to them about is, okay, you go here, you realize what it's like to calm down, but then you go back in and you're like, I'm bringing this back in, but you can snap back into your addictions like so quick. And then oftentimes you swing harder because you have more space for more. And so you go back into it, and then you judge yourself, and then you got to tune that out, and that's the shame spiral of addiction, right? Because I thought I had built this new skill, but 1 week doesn't build a habit. 1 week just shows you some kind of revelation porn. And so, but it was really cool to watch. The one thing that I think changed, like when I was working with people, it was the simple ideas. Like when you're overwhelmed and you're overworked and you're busy, right? Your kidneys, you're always in fight or flight, kidneys and liver, right? Liver chi. But the whole thing of like getting people to just breathe and notice the back of their body. Like if I could tell anyone anything that is like the life hack, when you breathe, feel the back of your body. Like put your hands on your back and breathe and feel the back of your body fill up first. And because we're always showing the front, right? It's always like you and I, we're seeing from here up. This is what we call the liar and the performer, and then the back and everything below this solar plexus line is all the things that are instinctually, it's like my feet are pointing all directions, wiggling around. Like I'm not wearing pants. There's all kinds of shit that's going on below here. But up here, I can just smile when I need to. I can be like, oh, it's like there's so many ways I can perform and lie. But if I can move to the places that I don't see, man, and like breathe into those places, the nervous system just starts like checking back in. So yeah, that was like the one thing. If I could tell anyone, if I could leave anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an integration is what you're speaking to, and that integration process is available in a myriad of different forms in the second moon, and can be really impactful if we're open to it. Like we have to be open to it, and that's the biggest. If there's an obstacle in the second moon that I maybe keep coming back to, is just to say you got to be open to it. You really do. Like you can't if you're just sort of like. It's like the teaching of the three cups, the Buddhist teaching of the three, what they call the three defects of the student, which is to say that like the first student, his cup is already full, right? So there's no teaching available, like I'm not going to hear you, teacher, And then the second one, the bottom is there's no bottom. So it just goes right through. They're kind of constantly equating everything with everything else. Oh, it's all the same, So it can't collect. The teaching can't collect. And then the third teaching is a bit more insidious because the cup is laced with their own assumptions, right? But it's more insidious. It's referred to as like a poison, right? So even in the teaching goes in there, it becomes tainted. So it's the most insidious and most dangerous, but also the most potential, because there is a way in which you, at some point, Dharma will reveal those prejudices to you in your attempt to, practice, the teaching, if you receive it, right? So I would say like that, all three of those things are available in the second very, very poignantly. All those things. Are you listening? Number one, it's like, and if you are listening, how are you listening? Are you basically waiting for your opportunity to speak, or are you kind of integrating and feeling the mutuality of it? So it's an incredibly dynamic time. It's very dynamic, but how we approach this is actually going to give a texture to our capacity, is going to give a texture to our potential as we go into that third moon. Are we going, because there's a moment that's coming, where, especially at the equinox, which is, like I said, like, in 12 days, where yang is going to, if you've been cultivating spring in this kind of like thoughtful way, then it's not going to, yang chi is not going to feel shaky, like very shaky. It's going to be able to kind of maybe hit the ground running a little bit. But it should, given its, wood dragon year, we're in the wood element all year long. We're in the wood element all year long. So that means this kind of like responsiveness to conditions, responsiveness to the environment, being that kind of playful, curious, and recognizing that your opportunities are going to shift. They're going to transform. They're going to disappear and come back. Like it's, and can you roll with that? Or are you trying to like, it's like trying to chase lightning bugs, right? And put them in a jar, You kill the spirit of like what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, it's a really potent time. The second moon, there's movement. It's really gonna start going. So managing that and managing our expectations about what's happening is basically going to be the core bit. And try not to be so reactive. Like, be kind, to other people's worldview, like as much as possible. Be curious and like seek out, like you talked about, like working with someone who does something you don't want to do. Like that's a great demonstration of like that kind of openness that's available, in the wood dragon year, and especially in the spring. Is that capacity to stand in and assist something that you would never consider doing, yourself.
I'm always going back to the things that it's like my judgments are my mirrors, right? And so, and so I know that if someone does something, sometimes it's not well executed or something like that. And I always like going back to the things that that I might not necessarily enjoy. I mean, I don't enjoy half the stuff I do anyway. You know, it's like I'm not an athlete. You know, next thing you know, I'm a professional
Yeah.
athlete. So, you know, so
Right.
like all
I
these
like that
things.
mirror thing. That'd be a good thing. That'd be a good
Yeah.
thing to tell everybody, is that mirroring, like, your prejudices, recognizing your prejudices, recognizing your history. Like, um, I think that's
Well, there's
good teaching.
if I shun something, you know, if I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It might be because it's like it built a skill that I'm not really worried about it. But if I do shun something, or if I am closed off to it, it's probably because I really devoted to it for a while. And I remember there was this one group, and they were trying to do some like improv stuff, and I walk away from improv. I don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me, but I really appreciate the minds that do it. But I say this because I did a 50-hour intensive with the Upright Citizens Brigade, like impromptu. I mean, I think you remember, I was like, this actor calls me up, and there's this opening, and they're like, get down there on Monday. And I'm like, oh, and I ride the motorcycle down, and next thing you know, I'm just terrified for a week. And then next thing you know, I'm on Sunset Boulevard on stage with, like doing this improv thing after 50 hours of training. And so like, I did it, I tried it, and I did it with some of the best. And it was profound in its work. Don't like it. It's not a art form that, if it makes you laugh, it makes you laugh. And every now and then there's just hilarity that happens, but that's so rare. Normally it's just a bunch of, it's like, I'm just not I don't like theater.
It's a bunch of uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about improv, or anytime I watch improv, I like, like programs like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Things like that.
Yeah.
I go watch it for a few minutes, but then I'm like, oh man, it's just too uncomfortable for me.
And it's not my art form. It's like I don't want to listen to people scatting either, and just skip it. I don't like that type of, and so you're not going to get me to a. There's a group out here, and talented, it's like they do that. There's kind of part of the Bobby McFerrin world, right? And they do that circle song stuff where it's like an improvisational singing. And from a musician point of view, I'm just blown away. But like, I don't want to listen to that kind of music. You know what I mean? I would never. It's not my thing. So it's like, if you're asking me to learn it, I would learn it as a mechanical exercise. But once I've kind of got enough to practice, I'm not going to stay in this, because it does mean I have to keep that in my head. And next thing you know, I'm listening to that kind of music too much, and my life isn't
so
happy.
all of these preferences are like right in our face right now. Like, all of our preferences are just unavoidable. The kinds of distinctions that we're making right now are very powerful. Very, very powerful. So I think this is just a great opportunity, to to self-reflect on that condition, because it's gonna basically reveal our potential for the year.
Can I speak for the rest of the United States of America real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
We want to know what your appetites are.
Mine, for practice. I mean, like,
that's too vague.
I'm pretty boring. No, I mean, this what I'm doing right now. Like, I study like constantly. So I mean, I'm just kind of in this because it's just still. There's probably. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. And I'm glad for that. Actually, I'm really glad for that. That I can't really put my finger on why I do this work, and like why I'm still studying and working with it. It just feels endless, and I'm constantly fascinated. So I am in this place of where I'm just following the fascination. Personally, I'm just fascinated by it, and it seems like it's something that I can never perfect. Like, you've seen me do forms. I'm pretty good. Like, I can get something really good in my body. And like, there's a way in which you never get it perfect, and there's always ways you could keep practice. You'll always there's always more that you could practice. But this astrological work and this practice, and seeing clients and seeing all the ways everything constantly loops together and connects, I'm in awe every day. When I do this, I'm just blown away. So I don't know when that's gonna like slow down, if it ever, but I'm not in a rush to have it change. Like, I'm actually good with it. Like, I'm in love and in awe and in fascination with what I do. And I think that's not many people can say that.
Mhm. Dude, thank you.
And I think it's really relevant. Yeah, I think it's really relevant to being a human being, and potentially really relevant to this time, where we feel as a people, as a human species, like kind of feel at these really important pivot points. I don't expect to make a major impact, but like at the same time, I see the practice in the world, and just again, it's just flabbergasted, So thanks for asking.
Yeah, man. Well, and on that note, you guys hear how devoted he is. So nourish Scott's appetite by buy him dumplings and then get a astrology reading. He's pretty swamped, and you guys go on to. I'm doing a thing, right? So these guys, I was told that I need to be doing. I'm doing these 1 month things, like just dialed in with someone twice a week. So you guys go on to the site and knock it out if you want to. And it's private one-on-one. I'll whether it's the journaling stuff. Did you guys know that journaling is blowing up right now? Everywhere I go, like people.
It is.
Yeah, it's blowing up. I'm telling you, the coolest people in the world journal. If you don't journal, you're whack. People that journal are fresh, and that's how it works.
But, I mean, I think I saw, like, I think Apple has a journal, like they have a journal thing. Dude, I know somebody that writes books for Amazon. I guess that's a thing. You can like write books for.
Yeah.
And there's like a million books on journal.
All the good ones journal, and I just have a different take on it. Even like when I just talking to all these people that are like, oh, that's how you do it. It's like, yeah, I want your creative mind to show up, because regardless of how much you journal, you're still probably stuck in your loop. So my goal is always get you out of your loop. There's no reason why, other than the fact that maybe you don't look up, down, maybe you don't smell the things, maybe you don't focus on, maybe you're always focused on productivity and busyness, or maybe you're always trying to manifest, or maybe it's always self-help. And either way, you're just digging into the same hole.
Yeah. Right. It reminds me of Ming once talked about in meditation, like you said, because everybody's kind of they get freaked out about mind, and that your mind is so busy, in meditation, like trying to quiet the mind, and it's such a struggle. And it was a really hysterical moment where he's like, well, you don't really think about a lot of things. You think about the same 5 things. And once I heard that, I was like, that's so true. You think about the same 5 fucking things
over and over. Yeah.
Over and over again. You keep coming back to it. I'm like, that is such a really amazing teaching about us, like about mind. That's so revealing of mind, that it's like completely content to come back to these places over and over again, and even if there's no traction on it, you want to kind of go over it one more time. The conversation that you're about to have with somebody, and it's like, why, but I don't think that's really about why. I think that's just kind of how we do things, how the mind kind of goes, so for me personally, I found that really fascinating, just because it changed, it sort of shifted my allowances in meditation to just recognize that, like, oh, that's the same 5 things I'm thinking about right now.
I'm going to put on some roller skates and skate off this.
Have fun. Hope you don't get rained on.
Yeah, it should be okay. But yeah, there's that. Oh man, and then I'm going to the beach. I will see everybody very soon. And
I'm stoked that you're going to be here, bro. It's going to be great. Yeah. It's going to be great.
Yama, Qigong, the ultimate Qigong course. There will be nothing better. I can hands down. I can guarantee it. And that's not me being cocky. I'm bringing in a team that is my dream team. So this ain't me. This is just me flexing this amazing community that I've been able to be involved with, and finally just saying, hey, let's do something great together. So it's going to be cool. And I was supposed
to witness it.
I'm trying to take down the something. There's a glitch on my site right now, and it won't let me delete anything. So there is actually. So if you guys haven't got the Year of the Dragon talk, it's still there. I've been trying to delete it. Customer service is trying to help me delete. I was like, it's gone. I love limited time. But it might be available. So if people still want it, it might still be up. But
check it out.
Yeah, if they sort it out, then it'll probably be deleted like within the next 24 hours. But the only other way to get it is if you guys will need it free after that moment, join premium. You get 2 weeks free, and then it's in the astrology part. You can watch it, and then you can just cancel your membership. I don't care. You guys, that's all your life hacks. But I really want everyone to join up, and I really want people to let's do a journaling session. Let's do a journaling group. Let's do all these things. They're all coming up.
Yeah, this is the time. This is the time.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you. You guys,
it's good to see you, brother.
Do yourself a favor. Everyone just Google like rabbits fighting. Have you ever watched that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I love it so much. And then the other one is like when the little rabbit was defending itself against like an eagle or something. It like jumps in the air and like kicks and stuff. Oh man,
kicks it. Yeah. Or like the one that I think is, I mean, it's great. I've seen these videos of like, you know, caretakers like picking up this big ass rabbit, and their back legs were just like boom, just and then the mate of that rabbit that she was picking up would come up and like whoo, bam, and try to like jump up and kick her. She's like, she was just trying to like give her a shot or something. Rabbits are crazy, man. You better be careful.
Man. Yeah. You guys gotta Google some of that stuff. Rabbits are
back legs, man.
They're awesome. Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, I mean they stand between the tiger and the dragon, and they can be impulsive and destructive like a tiger, or they can be like a great they can have a lot of integrity and grace like a dragon, you know. So they're like, they can do both. They can do both.
Well, speaking of integrity and grace, I just fixed my car, and now I have to roller skate.
Okay, have a great day, bro.
All right, man. I'll see you.
Yeah.